Developing Tomorrow's Leaders is a podcast that is all about educating, supporting, and inspiring the next generation of leaders. Your host, Antoine Thompson, or Coach T, has over 35 years' experience of educating, supporting, inspiring, and enhancing the lives of many young men and women. Join Coach T and his village of inspiration.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Developing Tomorrow's Leaders. And I am your host, Antoine Thompson, or Coach T. And this podcast is all about developing the next generation of leaders, and that includes preteens, teens, and their families. And my guest today is a licensed clinical mental health counselor, registered play therapist, family therapist, and she's a passionate advocate for children, families, and personal growth. With a career rooted in education and counseling, her journey is one of dedication, expertise, and transformation. After graduating from Appalachian State University with a degree in elementary education, she spent 5 impactful years as a middle school teacher before pivoting to her true calling, counseling. Her optimism, deep understanding of family dynamics, and unwavering commitment to positive change make her a beacon of hope and guidance for families everywhere. With that, I am happy to welcome Anastasia Aruz to Developing Tomorrow's Leaders. How are you, Anastasia?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad to have you. I appreciate all the work that you're doing. And when I was getting your bio, and this is like a great first question I wanted to ask you, because I'm all about people's why, why they do the things that they do. And even just reading your bio, the one thing was you were a fifth grade teacher for 5 years. And the question is, what made you want to pivot to becoming a counselor and therapist?
I love that question. Well, I was in the classroom and I loved teaching and I loved being with the kids, but I was finding myself wanting to do more connecting with the kids than just teaching math. Initially, when I first started teaching, I was in the inner city, and I was working with a group of kids that just had a lot of tough issues at home. Were struggling in school, struggling socially. And I always wanted to talk about that and like help them through that, really connect with their families. And it wasn't the math part that I became passionate about at that point. And so I decided I wanted to go back to school and really pursue counseling and then find a different way to connect with the kids.
Yeah. And it's I kind of knew that's kind of what you say. It's almost like we know what we want to do, but we find that hey, I'm making a difference here, but I can make a bigger difference if I do go a different route, and I can connect with more, not only kids but also families. Fair to say?
Oh, exactly. Because I only had like that one class or the few classes, but once I was the school counselor, I had the whole school. So I was able to really connect with all the kids at that point. So
Right. I'll actually add with my nonprofit. When I first started, I was working primarily with one group of kids, and then I started realizing that the kids start telling other kids, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is great. This will be great." And I'm like, "Well, I haven't thought about that, but hey, let's do that." And it snowballs, and you realize you make more of an impact. So I applaud you for taking that, and you obviously feel as though you made the right decision, because I know you probably feel very happy with the decision you've made and the results that you're getting.
yeah, totally. I mean, I've loved it. I've loved all the people I've met and the kids and the families. And I just have continued to want to grow and just meet and help and change more if I can.
Right. What you mentioned you taught in the inner cities. Were a couple major things that stood out to you that really helped you make that decision?
Yeah, for
If there are
sure.
one or two things.
Um, so I found that a lot of the kids in the schools primarily I was in Durham, North Carolina, and I was in Tampa, Florida for a while. And both times I worked in the inner city. The one school was right in the middle of the projects. The other one was close by, but it was a lot of children that just had single parent families. They didn't have a lot of structure. They didn't have the things at home to really support them in the way they needed to be successful in school. And so really at that point, I became very passionate about really trying to help these kids and figure out what was the missing piece. And then I connected with their parents or whoever was their caretaker, whether it be a grandparent or a parent. And from there, I just really started to understand the dynamic of a family system and why things happen, and just really getting to the root of it. And it's hard for them, because for the kids, especially because they're growing up in a setting that their parents are doing the best they can. But sometimes it's just not enough in regards to the educational part of it. It was just hard for them to really be able to focus and get their homework done. So at that point, I just felt like I wanted to figure out why and how to help them.
Yeah. While you're describing that, and it made me wonder too, when you did that, it probably made parents, and I know we'll probably get this a little bit more too, made parents feel like, hey, I'm not out here by myself. There is somebody out there that really understands what I'm going through, and that I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm basically following suit the way that I was raised. And there are other ways to, things, even though things change, there are certain aspects of growing up that shouldn't change. And that's the love that you need in a household. And not only from your parents, but also from people outside the home that understand the importance of that.
Yeah, that you're exactly right. The connection and the love piece is so important. And the kids, what I find with parents is that everyone loves their children as much as they can. And whether we think it's the right way or the wrong way, a parent truly loves their children. And I love the way when parents are able to connect with me and accept my help, accept my guidance. And those are the families that I felt really were able to be the most successful when they were able to use the support that I was offering. And sometimes it's hard. Some people are guarded. Some people don't want another person coming in their home or really getting that close to what's going on with the family. But the ones that did, most of those kids were more successful at school or with their friends.
I'll throw this in because I think it's relevant to this part of the conversation. You make a valid point there that a lot of parents they feel as though their parenting style or their approach is being impeded upon when an outside person comes in. Like myself, I personally don't have kids of my own, but for 30, almost 40 years, I've been around kids, working with kids. And the bond and relationship that you build with kids, and the trust that you build with them, the loyalty that you develop between you and the kids, it is something that you can convey to parents and the kids let the parents know, hey, Coach T or Coach Anastasia, they understand me and they see something that you don't, and between them and you, I can become a better student, a better person, and a better contributor to society later in life.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think it's really important because I always say, like, there's that, or it's not me that says it, it's that phrase, like, it takes a village. And I think that's so important in every aspect of our lives when we're raising kids, because we all have a different gift or talent that we're able to help with when we're around the kids or when we're helping in their lives.
Yeah. Yep. So is there one lesson that you've learned through your work with kids and family that you wish more people knew? And just based on your personal journey?
Um, Acceptance, really being open and understanding and looking at the whole picture of what's going on and not judging. I think that's a really big one. I think teachers sometimes get very overwhelmed with the amount of kids in the classroom, with the amount of behavior issues in the classroom. And a lot of times they're quick to judge or quick to make a decision or opinion. And I think we really have to try as hard as we can to hold off on that until we know the whole picture, until we can see exactly what's happening. And I get teachers get overwhelmed. I get that there's so much. The classrooms are really tough right now. But that's the other support piece, right? Being able to really support the teachers so that you can pull a child and really help them understand and then call the parent or whatever it may be. But I think that's what it would be.
Yeah. You mentioned the word discipline, and I think it's a great segue into my next question is if first and foremost, if you could explain play therapy, would be great.
Yeah, of course. So play therapy. So I'm a registered play therapist. And so a registered play therapist has a certification, plus they have a license. And to become a play therapist, you have to go through an extensive amount of training and then be observed and be recorded. And what's really cool about a play therapist is that they have so much training. They're really able to understand your children in a therapeutic way that if you're working with a therapist that they might not know if they haven't been trained. So really what play therapy is it really helps children express their feelings, explore experiences. It helps them resolve emotional or behavioral challenges. It really helps them because play is a child's words. And whenever they're able to play and be able to express whatever's happening in their lives, they're able to communicate their thoughts and feelings that they cannot express verbally. So the play really helps them to be able to express that.
Yeah, that's so wait a minute. I've been an unofficial play therapist to a degree, if I'm not mistaken, based on that explanation. I
Okay.
like that.
Oh,
I like
good.
that. I like that. So if I'm understanding this in layman's terms, you get a kid in an environment that they feel comfortable in, they're involved in an activity or an environment that they're comfortable in, they're willing to open up and not feel as though they're being interrogated, if you will, or the information is trying to be drug out of them. They feel comfortable, and then they gradually kind of share what they want, and you're able to get information to help you help them.
Yeah, and I think too, I think you made a good point in what you just said, in that when they're comfortable, you're not interrogating them. So that's a huge part of what I feel a play therapist does is they don't ask a lot of questions. You're holding space for them, you're listening, you're doing a lot of reflection. You never ask questions. Kids are so used to being interrogated because they've been in the classroom and they've had all these problems that the parents or the teachers are like, "What's wrong? Why are you doing that? Why is this happening? Why can't you sit still? Why can't you just hurry in the morning?" So they're so used to questions being thrown at them. That's one thing we do not do is we do not ask questions.
Yeah, no, I like that. The reason I joked about I've been doing that. It made me think of a situation I had a few years ago with a young man, and I understood the dynamics between he and his father, and it was one I wasn't really keen on because I kind of felt as though the dad was kind of pushing the kid, and he already had that drive. It was already within him because I coached him. I knew what made him tick, what made him go, and
Mhm.
one of them was the less you say, the more he does.
Yeah.
And so we were in an environment where we had just a workout and we were just having a conversation. And he was doing his workout, but he gradually, and he's a really quiet kid, but he just started opening up and just having the conversation. I didn't, like you said, I didn't ask questions. I just kind of added to the conversation that he had started. And I've just continued to see growth in him. And, I don't coach him and work with him now, but we still communicate, via text, staying in touch. But that was just what I kind of got it picked up from just with that explanation you provided.
Yeah, exactly. I think questions are really tough on kids sometimes. So I think we as adults think we know so much or we can figure it out by asking the questions, but really it's just being with the children and being and holding space and just being with them and listening to what they have to say and
Yeah.
allowing them that space to do that.
But that's another great opportunity too, is the pressure that parents put on themselves to feel as though they have to have all the answers because they feel inadequate as a parent if they don't have the answers for their kids. You have any insights to that? Would
Oh
you
yeah,
like
I
to
think
add
we all
maybe?
do that. I think we all do that. I mean, I even do that. I have an 11-year-old and then I have two step kids that are 18 and 22. And I daily am like, what is wrong with me? Why don't I know? But I think with support, helping people support you using resources that you have in your community, resources you learn about online. I mean, there's so many ways to learn now and to connect with others. I've done some group coaching programs with other moms. I actually lead a group coaching program now that helps have a community of support so we all don't feel so isolated in the parenting role. But yeah, I get it. It's tough sometimes because we
Yeah.
don't know everything. And one of the things that's funny is I'll be working with a family and I'll say, part of the reason that I know as much as I do is because of the amount of years in the classroom and as a school counselor, because when you're in the middle of it all, you're learning as you go. And after spending 20 years, you learn a lot. So I don't think it's just you don't know what you don't know. And so I think it's all okay.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So how do you help parents navigate the feelings of guilt or overwhelm in their parenting journey so that they don't feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really coming to an understanding within that you're doing the best you can. Really, I really try to help parents see that they can have compassion for themselves and really help them get on a personal journey of self development, of really understanding who they are and why. Um, they are overwhelmed, and what is the values they want in their home? What's the mission statement of their family? We talk about that a little bit. I really help families come to understand what the goal of it all is, so they can then put something around it where they're not feeling overwhelmed. They're using resources. They're taking space for themselves and time for themselves. And knowing that it's okay, you cannot do it all. It is impossible. I think we a lot of times feel like we should be able to work full time, have a clean house, cook every night. The kids always dress to the nines, but it's impossible to do all that. We're like, it's just, you can't. You have to be able to have support.
Yeah, you have kids dressed to the nines, and then the parents are just walking out like they just woke up because
Yeah.
they've got all that time, energy, and effort put into making sure the kids look good. And
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of funny. I'm picturing that, and you see kids, you see the parents just like, yeah, she's just worn out, or he's just worn out. He's just kind of
Mhm.
ready to, they've done their part, making sure to take care of the kids. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's also a mindset for parents too,
Mhm.
and is a shift too. And that's one of the other things I want to ask too is how does a parent's mindset affect their child's emotional development? If that mindset is not in the right place.
Yeah, I think we have such a huge impact on our kids, that I think it's really important we do the work within ourselves and really figure out what it is that how we're contributing to the family. What are we doing that is enhancing it? What are we doing that's making it harder for everybody? And that's tough sometimes because we have to look in the mirror and be like, I didn't make a really great choice about that. But one of the cool things about kids is that it's really easy to repair things with them because they're so present and they are so in the moment. Like as adults, we're always thinking about the past or the future, but kids, it's so amazing because they're always so present and they're just happy about the moment. And so if you do something that you regret or that you made a mistake, like I actually yelled the other day, we were trying to hurry for school and I yelled at my son. But then once we got in the car, I was like, I am so sorry. I should have never talked to you like that. That was real. I shouldn't have been rushing you. And I just got overwhelmed. So in that moment, I tried to repair what happened. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So I think if we as parents can take a step back and just like think about and be present in the moment and think about what we're saying and how we're acting. And we make mistakes, it's okay. And just letting the kids know that too.
Yeah, no, what I like about that is just one of the things that I think is really important too is being genuine and authentic with your kids because the more they realize that you're not perfect,
Yeah.
they know they don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And you just gave a perfect example of you can make a mistake, but as if
Mhm.
you rectify that mistake and as quickly as you do it, kids are going to learn, hey, I make a mistake. Best thing to do is rectify it as quick as I can. Then I don't dwell on it and it doesn't carry over to maybe the next thing.
Yeah. And they won't bury it. Like we joke around in my house like that. We don't push our emotions down because eventually they're going to explode and they're going to explode with anger or yelling or punching or whatever it is. And so we really try to make sure that we're talking about things or resolving things in the moment so it doesn't get carried on forever.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with that 100%. So, family rituals and connections. Do you have any examples of simple family rituals that promote a connection that helps with resilience as well? Family resilience?
Yeah, for sure. Kids love family rituals and it can be everything. I mean, I know we're kind of in the holiday season right now, but there's rituals all year long. Even in like a ritual that you wouldn't even think is a ritual is your daily routine, right? So the school week, Monday, everybody like what time you get up in the morning and what you do in the morning, if you make breakfast, if you help your children get ready, whatever the ritual is around that is really, really important to kids. I think the consistency is what is the basis of that, right? Because kids love consistency. They love to know things that are predictable. And so even if it's not that, even if it's a more traditional ritual like Christmas or a birthday party, just making sure that you are holding space for that, right? Because the kids love to have that. And then that builds a connection around the family. And there's conversations about it. And then the next year there's memories and things that we talk about. So it's really, really important to have that because the kids love predictability. They love the consistency, and that's what helps keeps them feel safe.
And I think that that is one of the things that probably where your work comes in big too is, transforming that from the home to the school
Mhm.
because just like you said, they like rituals and they like the consistency. Well, at home, it's a lot more controllable than it is outside the home. And I think that's one of those areas where if a child relies heavily on those rituals at home and they don't get it outside the home, it's easy for them to be knocked off that path of success.
Yeah, and I think though, if we can keep them, I mean, one of the things that if we have the stability in the home and things are so much harder outside, if they always know they can come back and they are going to have that, right? They're going to have that consistency. They're going to have that presence of you being there. They always know that there's a safety and security back in that home because, yeah, it's tough out there in the real world. It's tough in school and in working and all of the things because you're going to meet all kinds of people that are going to throw you off. So you have to be able to have that place to come back to feel that security.
Okay. So now I'm going to get to some really examples of things that you have actually dealt with when it comes to the parenting aspect, the challenges in parenting. What are some of the most common challenges that parents bring to you, and how do you typically help them address those issues?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times I'll get parents coming to me with behavior problems with children that it's hard for them to sleep. They're not focused in school. Children with a lot of anxiety, ADHD. Oh my gosh, I've had parents come with in the middle of a divorce, or there's been another traumatic event that's happened, and then that throws the family off of the balance. So I've had all kinds of things that people come to me with that are just really hard. And what I find remarkable and I really applaud them for is reaching out for the support because it's hard. I mean, and we need to have that sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Going back to what I was mentioning earlier about being genuine and authentic, part of that is also being able to reach out for help when you need it. And you mentioned a couple times so far through this conversation about utilizing the resources that people have. It be it you, me, whomever, but as long as they know that that's there. And I guess the next question would be: do you think that now that the times that we live in now, because there are so many opportunities for people to reach out to others, that parents are readily able to do it, and they're not so apprehensive about reaching out?
Yeah, I think there is so many different avenues people can go now. But I still think people feel sometimes, I think they get caught up in their own anxiety. They get caught up in their own judgments of themselves. So, but there's so many more avenues than there ever was before. And I think it's even if it's like your church or just something in your community, it doesn't have to always be somebody that's trained necessarily. It can be just someone that you can connect with where you have someone to talk to. As long as you're getting that support somewhere and not feeling like you're isolated because we're all struggling out there. We're all trying to do the best we can.
Yeah. So do you have like maybe one or two suggestions for parents to help them with the balance of being a parent and also having a professional life outside the home and trying to keep balance in the home while working outside the home?
Yeah, of course. I think that's one of the hardest things is really working full time and raising kids. And so knowing your schedule is really important. You might have to change it, right? Working maybe not the traditional hours. You might have to work different hours. I really try to help parents come up with something that makes everybody in the home feel, you'll hear me say this a lot, secure and safe, and not safe that they're going to get hurt, but just feeling that grounding safety feeling inside. So sometimes it doesn't look like that traditional thing. If it's a co-parent, if there's two parents living together, I try to suggest that one parent is home more with the kids. I think it's really important for parents to be home as much as possible with children all the way through high school. A lot of times people think that they can go back to work once the kids are getting older, but I think, and you can share in your opinion on this, that as kids get older, they need you just as much as they did when they were 3 and 4, because they're out in that real world and they're experiencing a lot of things that are hard.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And the reason I say it, what I'll add is, you know, and this is just me assuming. Like I said, I don't have kids, but I would say if I had a son or daughter, and I'm around them from birth through, high school, and you're building that connection with them. And one of the biggest things that you're doing with that connection is, I'm always here for you when you need me. And
Yeah.
if you say that, you have to actually do that. Meaning, when they go to college, that phone call comes, and or that trip back home. Hey, mom, dad, can we talk about? Absolutely. Because I know there's some parents that are like, I can't wait for kids to go off to college so I can be done with them. Well, their actions reflect that. And the kids feel like, okay, I'm on my own. I can't go back to mom and dad. And sometimes they do get lost. So I agree with you 100% that they should always be able to reach back out to their parents. Even me now at my age, I mean, my mom's, she's there. If I need her, I can call. And don't
Yeah.
think I won't, because that's just the way I was raised. I always be able to reach back out to them.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I do think when we're with our kids, right, we are working all day, we're tired when we get home, and that's understandable, but really trying to not get distracted with the phone. I think that's a really big thing that parents, we all do it. I do it myself, really getting sucked into the social media and the scrolling because it's a great way to just like decompress. But it's also a great way not to pay attention and be present with your kids. And so I really say put the phone down. If you want to do all that scrolling, wait till they go to bed. But really, no technology. I'm really a big proponent on just keeping the technology out of the house, or not out of the house, but just out of that family time, because it's so easy for everybody to get distracted with it.
Yeah, but see, that's a topic for like a whole that conversation could be 3 hours long, because I'll be the first one to tell you, because I talk to kids about it, and I was like, I'm talking to these kids about it, but I'll be darned if I'm not doing the same thing. So I challenged myself, and I started making changes, and I share with them the changes that I've made. And like, I'm like, yeah, this my life is not going to get any worse. It's not going to go downhill because I'm not on my phone or I don't have it on my hip. And they're like, yeah, but I was like, yeah, but here's a question I asked them, and you may use this or not. I'll ask them about the friends that they have online. I said, "What do you? Can you tell me about 10 of the 10,000 people that follow you on any particular platform? Can you tell me anything personal about them?" And 9 times out of 10, they can't. Well, you don't really know them, but you're allowing these people to dominate your time. And you're in the household with people that love you, will do anything for you. You're neglecting them, and you're giving more time to people that are truly not even existing in your life day to day.
Yeah, and I think we all do that at times because we do get it's so hard. It's such an addictive piece of technology. And as an adult, our brains are fully developed and are able, like you're saying, you're trying to make changes and it's hard. So we're able to make those changes and it's hard for us, but kids, their brains aren't even developed yet. So they don't even have the capacity really to be able to understand and do that on their own.
On their own, yeah. And then some parents are like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Well, they're growing up believe in that. And then when they become parents, what do you think they're going to tell their kids? Do as I say, not as I do. And I believe you have to lead by example if you really want your kids to do that. And of course, it's not going to be easy. I think you've said that too. But it's not what you are willing to do. It's not what you're capable of. It's what you're willing to do. Are you willing to sacrifice some things for your kids for their benefit in the long term, not in the short term, but the long term?
Yeah, and I think that sacrifice is a big word there because I do think we have to put ourselves aside sometimes. I mean, we do need to be present with ourselves, but then we do have to sacrifice things at times for our kids. We do have to take the time. You might want to be doing something else, but if your child is there, that's what you need to be focused on at the moment if they need you.
Yeah.
But I do think sacrifice is a huge one that we forget about. I think in our culture sometimes that
No. Yeah.
we are sacrificing for our kids at times because they need us.
Yeah, but I also think there's a flip side to that, and this is something I share with kids. As again, this is me on the outside looking in. I remind them understanding what your parents are sacrificing for you, because I
Mhm.
think the other part is that they need to understand that all the things that they're afforded don't all come easy. You started off when we're talking about the school systems that you worked in. You started with how appreciative are those kids of the things that they do have,
Yes.
and expect. And I think that there's a level of gratitude that kids have to understand and appreciate and give back, because it is a give and take, even for kids. And that's something that they need to learn at a young age.
Yeah, gratitude's huge. And that's one of the big things I work on with parents in that personal development stuff I was talking about is the gratitude piece. If we can model gratitude, the kids are gonna see that. Because I do agree with you. A lot of kids don't understand that. And they just want
Yeah.
more, 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 or expect, and so we have to have that gratitude piece for what we have. And
Yeah, absolutely. So, how have you had a lot of issues, or have you ever had parents that have come to you because they're having trouble helping their kids overcome setbacks or failures, and they're feeling overwhelmed trying to help their kids bounce back from something?
yeah, probably. Yeah, probably because they're in the middle of it and so it's harder and you don't know how to help them. So yeah, I think that a lot of times when that happens, it's just being supportive of your child. You don't have to have the right words. It's just really just being supportive. And it's tough when you don't get what you're trying for or you're expecting. And so just being supportive of them.
Yeah, I've always, I think in the beginning clip of the intro to this podcast is me with a group of kids we did a couple years ago, and it was about 15 middle school and high school kids, and it was just a series of questions that were asked of them, and that was one of the questions I was asking about is with setbacks and things of that nature, and who should be leading the next generation, posing questions to make them put them in our position as adults, and make them understand and let them see from our lens of what goes into the opportunities afforded to them. And it was quite interesting to watch early on as they go around. The mindset changes from beginning to end because they have a little bit of time to think, and they don't realize how much goes into their development and the opportunities they're given. Extracurricular activities in school, that costs money for parents. So you don't know how much disposable income your parents actually have, but they're coming up with it for you because they know it's something you want to do. And how many kids have started something and never finished it? And the parents are like, well, this is what they want. I want to make sure they have everything they want. And then I don't think kids realize what parents put forth. And I think that's what's really important for us to convey as well as coaches, and in your situation as therapists, is remind them that it is about you, but you have to give as well as take.
Yeah, and I think really educating our kids on it. So when they're signing up for those sports and they're signing up for those classes, letting them know, like even sharing, like, oh, we're going to pay for this for you today, whatever. And depending when they're older and not when they're super little, but and not making them feel guilty or anything, but just educating them on the cost of these activities that they're doing and that you want them to do, but it does cost money.
Yeah, and it's also, I'm sure a lot of parents would say, if you start something, be sure you finish it and
Yeah.
understand what it takes, to finish it. And I'll give you a perfect example. Some one young lady I worked with for about 3 years, and during her junior year, she decided she no longer wanted to play. But it's the way she walked away was probably the most mature way you could have done it, and I couldn't have been prouder of her how she did it. But she went through it. She's like, I'm battling this. I want to be a good team player, but I want to contribute to the success of the team by working on my individual skills. And there was a conflict between her and the coach. He wanted her to dedicate all her time to team. And she's like, well, I could do the team thing, but I'm not getting better as an individual. That
Mhm.
means I'm sacrificing my own personal growth, physical growth, and athletic growth for the sacrifice of the team. Well, team doesn't do well, but I don't do well. And she's like, I don't feel as though I can do that and feel good about myself. I'd rather not participate. And she shared it in a very mature way with the coach. And she shared with me, she felt like she was letting me down by telling me, I'm like, no, I love the fact that you took time, you thought it out, and you talked it over with your parents. And I remember her asking me questions, but I never obviously gave her any answers. I was like, okay, she's got something going on that she wants some
Mhm.
feedback on. But I think it's important for kids to make those decisions for themselves sometimes, especially if they understand how much they have to put into it to be successful.
Yeah, and I think what you talked about was just her being able to communicate that. So your leadership, along with her family, maybe helped her really be able to feel confident in communicating that,
Hmm.
understanding the words to use. So the communication piece is so huge.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Communication to me is probably the most important thing because you can convey every emotion that you're feeling through communication, verbal and nonverbal. And I'm sure you, as a parent, you probably see more nonverbal than you get verbal, right?
Of course, yes.
That's crazy. Would you have one good piece of advice for parents that are raising kids in today's world?
Oh my gosh, I always go back to the phone because I think that's such like a huge thing that takes so much time is just be so aware of that piece of technology and be present, not being on it. Don't give it to your kids at an early age. I think the earliest that kids should have it would be 14 or 15. And really, before that, they do not need social media. They don't really need a phone because they should be with you or with people you can call. So mine always goes back to the phone and just being very aware of that powerful piece of technology.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting question, just based on that answer you provided. Do you think that some parents provide their kids these electronic devices earlier to not only appease, but they feel as though it's assisting their parenting?
Yeah, I think it happens in different ways, right? So when they're very little, like I see kids at restaurants from like 3 to 6 with it. I think they give it to them as a babysitter, kind of, so they have something to do. But then as they get older, for instance, my son's 11, I would say every single day he asks me if he can get a phone. Now, we've talked about him not getting a phone till he's 14. He knows what I do for a living. He knows that I'm constantly educating people. But this guy will ask me every day when he's getting a phone.
He's
So
trying to break you.
yeah, he is consistent. So if I'm getting that, I know a lot of other parents are, and it's relentless, and that
Yeah.
kids just want it. And so I just think that they want to please their children and they want the kids to feel good. And it's hard to say no when they want something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I always think about that elephant in the room too, when it comes along those lines, and that's the peer pressure. Peer
Yes.
pressure to me is probably one of the hardest things because they want to keep up with everybody else, and then they know that they're being judged if they're 12 and they don't have a phone, but uh, their friend's sister who's 7 has one, and they're like, "Well, my sister has one, and you don't have one. My gosh, well, your parent, you people poor. You why do your parents don't want you to have it?" And it goes back to what you were saying too earlier about rituals and instilling family values and morals and go, hey, yeah, I understand that, but our family doesn't believe in us having phones until we're 14, and I respect that, and my parents have a reason for that, and that's what they say. That's what I honor. Except your son, of course. Maybe I need to share that with him.
I might, yeah. He's gotten over things he can tell his friends and all that, but he still wants that phone. And he tells me constantly, so and so has a phone, and da da da. And I'm like, I know, I understand, I get it. It's hard that you don't have one, but we're sticking to it. So
Yeah. All right, so fun question for you. These are things I love. I love success stories. Do you have some favorite memory or success story or stories that you can share without getting specific, but just general terms of success stories that you've had?
yeah, of course. I this is interesting, and I don't talk with him anymore. But when I first started teaching, there was a little boy in my class. This was in Tampa, and he was struggling academically. He was struggling socially. He lived in the neighborhood surrounding the school. And one really cool thing about his grandmother was raising him. She was so connected with the school, and she would be in that classroom. She'd be meeting with me, meeting with the teachers. That was so that would have been like 25 years ago. Well, I see this guy online now because we're friends. That's one cool thing about social media is you get to see these kids. And so he's probably in his 30s or 40s at this point. He is successful. He has a job that he manages something with the school. So I don't really know what he does, but he's always traveling. He is not living at all the way he was brought up. And I attribute that to his grandmother connecting herself with the community, using the support around her, asking questions, always being present, allowing people to help her. And I think when I look at him and I see his growth, I always just feel like I feel proud that I was part of it, but then also knowing that it was his family that really helped him and stayed with him the whole way and really connected
Yeah.
with his resources.
No, that's cool. No, that's a great story. I love to hear stories like that because you know that you're a part of it, but you also something you saw in him, and then he saw it himself later, and he takes it and just blossoms. Those are great stories. Got another one?
I have one recent one with a mom that worked with me that she basically she had a little girl. She has a little girl, and she is a single mom. And the little girl was really struggling in the classroom at home with behaviors. And the mom came to me, and I did a lot of play therapy with her daughter, actually. But what was cool about this mom is that she would come into the room with me. She would learn the techniques that I was doing. And then she would, anything we talked about, she would go back and try. She was very consistent. She always did what was recommended. She would ask a lot of questions. She always brought the child to her appointments, and the little girl's doing great now. I mean, there's still some things that are going on with her, but there's nothing like it was. She does very well in school. She's only in fifth grade at this point, but because here again, and it's similar to that other story, the family's so connected to the child, and they're working with them, and they're using the supports around. And so she's doing well. And so I'm really proud of her and her mom for the amount of time that they've taken.
All right. So basically, you're telling me you know what you're doing and you're successful, and you just told a couple of stories. So maybe you should keep doing this. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I try. I really do. I feel like God gave me this gift to really work with children and families, and that's what He wants me to do. And so that's what I've done forever. So hopefully I can keep doing it.
Yeah, it's funny to you say that. I think when I started this, one of my biggest fears was, well, who's going to listen to you, dude? You don't have kids. And I'm like, yeah, my wife and I weren't blessed with kids of our own, but that's because I was blessed with the gift to impact more kids. And that's is my inspiration for what I do. And like you said, the stories that you have with the kids that you have worked with make it worthwhile. And we both know, as you say, it takes a village, but changing one life makes it worth it.
It does. And I
And
think, yeah, you bring up such a good point of not having children doesn't, because I didn't have children for a very long time. I was older. I was in my 40s. I was 40 when I first had my son. And so I had a whole career before that. And I always was, people would say, well, you don't have kids. And I think when you have that gift and you have that passion, it just comes naturally. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, it really does. And I'll share this with you. I think you'll appreciate this. There's a young man. He is a freshman now in high school, and he's been he's autistic, but he's been working with me for about 4 or 5 years. I haven't worked with him actually in the last year and a half, but he'll text me about every 2 to 3 months. Well, he didn't text me for about the last 4 months, and he was so apologetic when he texted me, apologized for not reaching out. And I'm like, I'm just happy to hear from you, but the fact that he's thinking about you after and not having worked with you, those are the kind of things where you know what you do matters because you made that much of an impact. And like the families you've worked with, his family's very close and they're very appreciative of the work we've done and helping him kind of his shell a little bit. But it these are the kind of things that make it worthwhile. And it's one reason I wanted to have you on because I know you've impacted a lot of families and a lot of kids. And what people need to understand is that you don't have to try to do it on your own. There are resources like yourself out there and myself out and others and in my so-called village of inspiration that are able to help families and help kids and definitely applaud you for the work that you're doing. And before I ask my final question, I would love for you to share with us how people can get in touch with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So I'm on all the things, social media wise. But you can Instagram, I'm on a lot. I get a lot of messages through there. So it's anastasia.aruz. And then you can always email me. And I think my email is down below here, anastasiaaruz@gmail.com. And then you can check my website out. And that gives information about who I am and my experiences. And yeah, definitely. And TikTok as well. So yeah, any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just checking out some of your TikToks and that really good stuff you have, and I really appreciate it. I really want to thank you for your time and and all your insights and the work that you're doing. It's obviously you're making a difference, and really appreciate you and wish you nothing but continued success. So, my final question for you is, if you could share with us the individual or individuals that have been most influential in your life and why.
Oh my gosh. For me, probably my mom, because she has always just been there, regardless of what's been going on with me. So my mom has been a huge, huge influence. And then probably my husband's been very supportive of me the past like few years in this journey I've been with coaching. And so, yeah, they've probably been the two that I think at this point.
Yeah, that's great. And I always say this, I know people that listen to it regularly, but I asked that question because I want listeners to understand that people are influenced and inspired by different people in different stages of their lives. And, some are young, early on in life, and some are later in life, some are throughout their lives. And so make sure they understand that somebody comes in your life comes in your life for a reason or a season. So don't overlook them too quickly because they could be bringing some value to your life.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really good.
So I am going to share a little bit of about my other podcast. And while I do that, Anastasia, I'd love for you just to be prepared to close us out with some words of encouragement or maybe your tip of the day for families. And I am going to share that I also co-host another podcast with my good friend Keith Senzer. We have a podcast called Teen Speak, Empowering Today's Youth. It's a podcast for teens, about teens, and starring teens. We actually have a form on each of our websites. Keith's website is shiftyourpower.com, and mine is coachtcorner.com. So if you have a middle schooler, high schooler, or college student and you'd like to be on the show, the great thing about this podcast is the kids reach out to us to be on the podcast. And the podcast premise is that the kids come and talk about challenges and struggles that they've gone through. But more importantly, they share the strategies that they've used to overcome those challenges and those struggles. So they are the voice for the voiceless, for those kids that are going through the same things and may not feel comfortable coming on. And we've had some amazing guests. We've had an All-American fencer from Northeastern University come on. Megumi Oishi was amazing. And we've had several kids come on to talk about bullying and some of the mental health issues, a couple of young people that are part of my nonprofit organization. So we would love to have you be a part of it. And as I say, I co-host that with Keith Senzer and myself. We are both youth leadership and empowerment coaches. So having said all that good stuff, we come back to Anastasia, and she's going to close us out with some amazing and inspiring words of encouragement.
Of course. So I'm thinking tonight, something you could do with your family is a connection ritual. And this could be a daily 10-minute chat at dinner or a weekly game night or even a Sunday walk together. So using these moments to strengthen the bonds for communication and also just creating memories. So I just wanted to share that since we had been talking just about the ritual thing earlier.
No, that's a great way to finish out because I think you're absolutely right. It's a great way to plant that seed for building that family connection. And I think I would just add being authentic and genuine for parents to understand they don't have to be perfect. Let your kids know that you're not perfect, and the sky's the limit what you can do. So again, Anastasia, I really do appreciate you and your time, and I wish you nothing but continued success. I'm sure at some point we'll stay connected. If I can ever do anything for you, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. As always, I'm Coach T. I'm here to educate, support, and inspire the next generation of leaders. Until next episode, we'll see ya.
Coach T's new book, The Ultimate Guide to Success for Preteens and Teens, is the perfect resource for preteen and teen personal growth and development skills. It breaks down in detail his SEA of Success program and its applications in 10 key development areas. The program applies Coach T's 3 key components: simplicity, effort, and attitude. It includes some of his success stories, as well as former and current student testimonials. Order your copy today on Amazon. Available in paperback and hardback.